Hey, good morning. Christy Renee here from Mind Rewire. I just got a message from somebody from another video about the whole brain state. So they've been watching the whole brain state series probably. I forget which video it was actually. I'll go back and look again and post it under here. So if you're interested in learning a whole brain state, you can learn it from that playlist. But her specific question was, does the shift from a whole brain state remain permanent? So let me answer that question first. It remains permanent if you got to the underlying core of it. I mean, that's with anything, right? If you missed something, it will probably come back up, and to a different degree, probably, but it might still be there. So in that case, if there's anything left of it, you would just go back in the moment, right? When you are in the issue, go back and do it again, right? Do crossover balance. The second you feel fear, come after it again, right? What I would say to, does it remain permanent? Think about it this way. If I have an issue that let's say it started when I was 10 years old, and whatever the problem I'm having now, the emotional reoccurrence or the reoccurrence of whatever an issue is in my life, is because of that thing that happened at 10 years old. Think about it in kind of terms of time. If it happened at 10 years old, at such and such a time and such a date, which is almost impossible to know, but if I go before that, even a minute before it, if I can get a minute on the other side of that, it didn't exist. So you can kind of play with a whole brain state in that way. And because your brain, the way that it works is basically time locked. It works in the function of time, different spaces of it. So in the remembering aspects of things, it's as if your brain is giving you information and feedback from that 10-year-old issue. So if I go before that, it's not there, right? In that simple realization alone, if you walk yourself backwards through the issue to before the issue, and just sit there with it. And even in that space, put yourself into a whole brain state. When you're on the other side of a known issue, put yourself into a whole brain state and just observe. From the state of your heart, just observe whatever that is, right? You're not in it yet because it hasn't occurred yet in that space and time. Does that make sense? So you can you can utilize that with this, right? So we're coming at this fear from many different objective angles. So using a whole brain state for fear, here's how I would do it. I would take 3 or 4 deep breaths. I always breathe and relax my body before I do anything. So the big I hope you heard my breath. My inhale was such, you could actually see me expanding. Gut expanded too. Everything opens. This is like a big tube. And then as I release the oxygen, my exhale is longer than my inhale. That calms down the autonomic nervous system. So that by itself, if you did some regular breathing that way, when you're in the state of fear, it will start helping the state of fear also. So now you've got 2 things. We've got the idea that breath can help release fear. We've got the idea that if you know what the issue is and you go a minute before it or 2 weeks before it or whatever, wherever you can get to, and sit in that feeling from before it, you'll get some release. And remember I said, when I'm doing this work, I'm coming at it from as many different angles as possible. Okay, it's not just one thing. So breath is one, getting a minute before it is one. Now, if I think about the fear, just by feeling, let's say I don't know what the issue is. If I think about the fear and I feel it, but I'm not going to fall into it. I'm just going to notice it, right? Just be curious, be an observer. Just notice the fear. And I find the edge to it, which most of us can do. Even I can still find the edge of fear pretty easily. And notice where you're feeling it. So I'm feeling it right now in my gut, but I feel it and I just notice it, pay attention to it. I do my 3 breaths. Inhale. Nice long deep exhale. Inhale. Nice long deep exhale. And then last one, inhale. And nice long deep exhale. Now you might already notice that the feeling, and I've got my hand on my gut because I was noticing that feeling of fear, the feeling is already changing. Just by breath alone, right? You'll start to get a release. Once I'm on my 3rd breath, I'll start with my ankles and I'll cross my ankles. And I feel which way, so I'll sit one direction, feeling the fear, noticing, and then I sit the other direction, noticing that the direction that felt stronger. And you can even kind of push one ankle into the other, and you'll notice a difference with your legs locking up or not. You want the side that's stronger. I do the same thing with my wrists. I'm still feeling the fear. Give a little push. Do you see the difference? It always cracks me up. Right? So this side is a little bit weaker. So I'm going to stay on this side. I'm going to cross my wrists over my heart, close my eyes, keep my ankles crossed. And I'm just going to sit feeling that feeling of fear until I feel it shift. So you want a mental shift. Could be an emotional shift, the way you feel. You might get a different thought to it. Right? And you sit here. This can take up to 5 minutes. So if you're doing this with me, I want you to turn your video off and I want you to stay in the feeling. Turn your video off and stay in the feeling until you feel a shift. Now, once you feel the shift, I want you to take a deep breath in, and then I want you to come to the best feeling you had. Find the best feeling you had. So it was probably right when it shifted. You get that little twinge of joy or release. Some people call it freedom. Get an opening feeling, maybe a more expansive feeling. And I just want you to hold on to that. You could, holding that feeling, find the pattern for the whole brain state. When you're, sorry about that, somebody sent a call in. When you are feeling that feeling, find a new pattern for the whole brain state to that new feeling. And then sit in it again. This will amplify the new feeling, will amplify the new feeling. When you did it the first time, you're moving the neuroplastic and releasing the old feeling. Does that make sense? I shouldn't have touched my phone. Now it's moving all over the place. Okay, so there's that. So now you've got 3 ways. Come at it from space and time. What was the incident? If you know it, go a minute before it. Put that in a whole brain state. Let it process. Or just observe it. If you can just be there and observe it and not sit there and like think about it falling into it, that will also help to unlock it. Putting the feeling itself into a whole brain state, and breath work. So there's 3 ways right there that you can work on this to get rid of it. I won't lie to you, sometimes it takes time, right? It takes a concerted effort of redoing and redoing. We want the one and done. A lot of these programs and protocols that come out with this stuff make it sound like it's one and done, but it's not always. Sometimes yes, not always. Sometimes you have to find different angles to it. Sometimes working through the story backwards. If you go through it forwards, you're building up the same thing you've always built up to it, right? The repetitive nature of thinking about something and going through it and doing it again. Yeah? If you go through it backwards, and then sit on the other side of it when it didn't happen in that clarity, it can change a lot of stuff, that by itself. The other way I would do this, so now here's number 4, is go into your heart, right? So we're going to do heart coherence. I want to go into my heart space. The big inhales, the nice long deep exhales. I go into my heart space. I drop into the center of my heart. And I just notice I'm just there. Now I want to stay in the center of my heart, but I want to come towards my brain and I want to find the feeling of fear. But I don't want to fall into it. So same thing again. I don't want to fall into the fear. I just want to notice it, become aware of it. From the state of my brain, you're going to get thoughts, you're going to get pictures, you're going to get ideas about what this fear is to and who did it and how it started and what your part in it was, what caused it, whatever, right? It's going to come into your brain. I want you to take all of that information as you inhale. Take all of that information, pretend like you have a bucket in your brain and stick all of it inside the bucket. And then we're going to put a ladder from your brain to your heart. This is called the ladder of awareness. It works with the idea of heart coherence. From your brain to your heart, all that information in, I want you to walk down the ladder and dump all of that information about your fear into your heart space. Just drop it in. Breathe. And then notice. Pay attention. Be open and curious. Keep watching what happens to the fear. Most people say it's like watching a toilet flush. This, it just disappears. And it's interesting when you understand that your heart is a transducer. The inside of your heart transduces information. So it can take the information of your brain, right? The thoughts, the emotions, it's the neural peptides, the chemicals and hormones, and it'll transduce it into something that your heart does, which are the attributes of your spirit, the internal self, right? Your higher being. You'll find this information in the playlist that's called Beyond Heart Coherence. And it would be specifically under the ladder of awareness, the video, the ladder of awareness. Once it's inside your heart, it transduces. The only way you will know that this works is if you do it and you play with it, right? Experiential evidence beats out anything, science included, every single time, because when you know that you know, it doesn't matter what anything else says. When you understand how your system works and functions and what you can actively do with it, it doesn't matter what anything else says. Heart math has the science on heart coherence, right? And I started calling it that because they called it that. But I was doing heart work like this, going inside and finding and helping people find what I say it's your spirit. That's the home of your spirit, yeah? You can find it many different ways, and this is one of them. Another way is to go beyond birth, go beyond conception to the other side, and sit there in the state of your being without the physical body. You can do that, right? I've done it many times with hundreds, if not thousands of people at this point, all over the world. You can do that. It's easy. And once you feel that, you can't unfeel it. Once you take something out of your brain and stick it in your heart, and it's truly inside your heart, don't get locked on the outside because there's neurites there that will hold information. Bring it inside your heart. Let your heart process it. Find that secret space inside your heart. Okay, go to my Beyond Heart Coherence for more on that. From there, we're going to go down to your gut because your gut does neurons too, right? It produces information. It produces neurochemical information. So you're going to take this information, now that we've taken it from the brain to the heart, your heart processed it once, we're going to take the information our heart has about fear now, which is probably calmness and peace, and it should be something, a semblance to that. Freedom, call it whatever you want to call it, but take it now, put it back in the bucket, move the ladder from your heart to your gut and come down to your gut with it. Your gut's going to only do two things, one of two things. It's going to either tell you fight and flight and throw you back into a state of fear, because your gut holds that information too. It'll tell you, no, there's something here to be fearful of. It'll give you that feeling, a gut feeling. It'll give you a sinking feeling, a tightening feeling, right? You'll know. Or there's nothing to worry about, and your gut will come to a feeling of peace. You'll be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Take whatever feeling you get, bring it back up into your heart. Process it one more time. Take it back to your gut. Feel it again. If you're getting the fight flight feeling, you're going to keep going back and forth until it clears, right? Until you can no longer feel it. And then I would do it a couple more times, right? You could do this up to 10 times, if not more. Or you can just do it a couple times, it lessens, and you're like, I don't have time right now, but I'll come back to it. You can always come back to it. When it shows up in the field, when it shows up in your life, when you're walking the next day, the next hour, whatever it is, and you feel that fear show back up, do it again. Head, heart, gut, right? And then bring it back and forth until it dissipates. Once your gut is clear, take the information from your gut, put that back in the bucket, back up the ladder into your brain. And let your brain have some of the peace that your gut has, that your heart has. When all of this is in alignment and it all has the same information, inhale, exhale. Breathe it up and down your system. Because when you do that, when you can feel that, when you start to become that, everything starts to change. That level of coherence, when my brain, my heart, and my gut are all in alignment, will change who you are as a person. If it shows back up, do it again. Do it again. Do it again. I spent a couple of years doing anger because I didn't realize the gut was involved at that point. I was doing heart and head, hadn't added gut into it. When I added the gut into it, it was almost an instant change. But there was a few times when anger would show back up and I was like, I would just do it again. And all of a sudden, like even things that should anger me now, don't anger me. I'm just like, all right, everybody's got their thing, right? If I'm getting angry at something somebody else does, that only affects me. It doesn't affect them. I'm angry. They could care less usually, right? What are we getting angry for? So you learn how to handle and mitigate those emotions by keeping this coherent, heart, brain, gut, wherever they are, right? It's one unit. It's not separate parts and pieces when they're connected, yeah? Okay, so now you have another way to do it. So the rest of this person's question was, if I resolve fear from heights through a whole brain state, will that shift remain permanent? If you hit the point before it started, if you pull all of the neuroplastic apart at one time, which I'm going to say doesn't usually happen. And I hate to be, I'm going to be super honest about this. There's a protocol out there that uses this specifically. They're known for this. I get a lot of people who have used practitioners from that protocol, which I learned it too. I did the whole series of them at one point, that say I was great for like 3 months and then it came back. Everything came back. And it's not a game of getting rid of it, honestly. It's a game of observing it. If you want true freedom, learn how to observe yourself. All of this stuff will get you somewhere. Heart coherence to me is the top seed on this, when you're in your heart observing all that goes on around you, and you've done it well enough. The observation has been done well enough, because it's not from a state of your brain or your physical eyes or your physical senses that you're observing. It's from a state of your spirit that you're observing, from your heart, from inside your heart, deep inside your heart. When you can do that and observe it no matter what's going on around you, it will eventually not even affect you. And that I'm not joking about. But it's a practice. It's not a one and done. Any of these protocols that are taught, that they tell you are one and done, you can 5 minutes and you're going to be fine. Be skeptical. But if you learn how to use it, it can become a practice, right? And as you practice it, all of a sudden you're going to start to find relief that you've probably never known your whole life. And in doing that, you're going to become more connected to your true self, to your inner self, to your spirit. And in doing that, You're going to find other higher level things that will work more efficiently, that will take you further into a state of enlightenment, right? What are you seeking? Are you seeking better things on this planet, more material items, right? Money. What are you seeking? Are you seeking spirit? Are you seeking enlightenment? Because depending on what you're seeking, it's going to be dependent on what you're being shown. If you fear clear of heights, and now you can move to a new height internally, not just externally, what would that do for you? Right? Seeking enlightenment, the lighter you get. Do you understand where I'm going with that? It will keep changing the nature of who you are. And then these kind of struggles with human emotions become a totally different thing. They become almost obsolete. Does that make sense? Was this helpful? This was a long video. I apologize for that. But if you like, share, and subscribe, I will keep doing this. Ask me your questions. I will make videos about it. Let's help set the record straight as far as what we can and can't do as humans. Let's open up the power of our systems. I think together we can change the world doing this stuff. But it's going to take effort. It's going to take repetitive action. It's going to take us sitting down and doing it and not buying into the, I'm just going to call it new age bullshit that we've been slung for years, right? And the protocols that cost massive amounts of dollars. I find it horrifying. If you want a free session with me, I'll post the link below, a free session. If you want a session with me, my time is not free. Information I give away pretty easily on this channel. If you look around, you'll find all kinds of information, including how-tos on how to do this stuff. I'm not hiding it. I'm not keeping it to myself. I got a horrible email from somebody. I want to think they were in the Philippines, but I'm not really sure. The other day, accusing me of all kinds of awful things, that I was hoarding information. And I'm like, you obviously didn't look through my channel, because there's a whole brain state playlist. There's a Beyond Heart Coherence playlist, and it's all there. All you got to do is go through it and practice it and do it. Like literally, it's not rocket science. None of this is rocket science, is it? Oh, sorry, I did not mean to go on about that. But if you look around, you'll find the information on this channel. If you need help, do what this person did who asked about solving the fear from heights. Post a question and I'll make a video on it specifically for you how to do it. Now the next video that I'm going to do will be actually walking you through the ladder of awareness. I just now talked you through it. We're actually going to do it to a state of fear of heights specifically. It'll take probably about 10 minutes. So after you've watched this video and you want to see that one, take a look at it. We're going to go specifically through it. I'm going to be feeling into the field to see how this is feeling. For the person who sent me this email, as I feel it's cleared, I'll move on to the next step, because there's time in between each step that it takes to let it kind of simmer in and clear the field. So I'll do that with you. I will do that with you. All right, I bless you. Thank you for being here. Like, share, and subscribe. If this helped you, hopefully it'll help somebody else. I know it definitely helps me just doing this with you. Thanks. See you again soon. Actually, see you in the next video.